Well, good morning, folks. Happy Wednesday, the 8th of August. The international break is over. Rangers are almost back. So, Derek Clark and I are both full of optimism and positivity this morning as we look ahead to the return of club football, Derek. And it was an entertaining sign off to international football last night. But I read your thoughts on the international break yesterday, and doesn't grab you overall, does it? So you'll be glad to have the Rangers back on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a good result for Scotland, of course. But for me, international breaks, I'm not a fan. Don't get me wrong, tournaments, I'm all in. Give me them every day of the week. But the international breaks, it just seems that we've just started to get going, and then there's an interlude, and they just seem to be getting longer and longer. That being said, this international break came at the right time, I think, for Rangers. So not too many complaints about this one, but there's one next month, there's one in November as well. So yeah, it's just one of those. You just need to grin and bear it, and hopefully it passes quicker than you think, and you're back in domestic action.
I didn't know there was one in November. I thought one.
Well, surprise!
Hey, great. There goes the consistency. Okay, perfect. Well, the good news, I guess, there's good news and bad news for Rangers from the international break. The bad news being obviously that Nathan Patterson had to leave the Scotland squad on Monday with an injury that he picked up against Moldova, although he was excellent in the showing at Hampden. And then yesterday we got the news, Derek, that Ianis Hagi's tested positive for coronavirus, so we're missing quite a few key games for Rangers over the next wee while, which is really frustrating. And just as you think you're getting the whole squad back, you're getting your whole options back, something like this goes and happens again, which is frustrating, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And this is why I'm not a fan of international breaks. It's okay if players go away and come back in the same condition they left in, but it's a major blow losing Ianis. He was outstanding for Romania the other night. We've all seen the little clip with the outrageous bit of skill, and then the assist and what have you. He's been really impressive this season. So that's going to be a big blow. Of course, we just wish him well, and hopefully he's back fighting fit before too long. I'm sure he will be. But it's another blow. Rangers just can't seem to get a break at the moment with coronavirus. It's still around. It's still prevalent. But we wish him all the best. Hopefully he's back in contention before too long.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing for Hagi, I guess, is that he started the season really well, and then he got kicked up in the air against Livingston. So then he missed, 2 weeks maybe of the season. And Gerrard, spoke specifically about how I think it was after the Alice Kirk game, wasn't it? When he was such a he was a Duracell bunny, and I think the frustration for him will be that he now has to really wait until probably looking at the end of October to really get his domestic season going, which is frustrating. But again, it's the reason that Rangers have such options in their squads. But I always think I just think Hagi's such a good option because he can have games where he really doesn't look, or he certainly had games last season where he stood out for wrong reasons. But I think he's the type of player that just, especially if you've got a home game in Europe or you need to get the crowd on side. You've seen that in the Alice Kirk game, he just doesn't really get impacted or affected by that, and he's such a good option to have. So he'll be missed, and we obviously wish him all the best.
Yeah, but we've got Rangers have got Leon, of course, next week at Ibrox, and you'd imagine that he would have been one of the big players you're looking for that one, aren't you? So it's probably likely that he's going to miss that, which is a blow. Domestically, I think you can almost get away with it with the fixtures. I know St Johnstone coming up on Saturday, and then Motherwell a week on Sunday. But the Leon game is the one that even he himself would have been looking forward to that immensely. It's that big stage that he thrives upon. So yeah, it's just really unfortunate, and it's just a shame that he's contracted it. But let's hope he's back well soon and back in contention.
We beat Leon 3-0 away from home, so it'll be easy, won't it? Leon, the home leg was the return leg where Benzema scored.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, he ripped Rangers apart that night. Yeah. But in a way, it was a blessing in disguise because, of course, that started the run to Manchester. In a way, at the time, you're thinking, it was a great opportunity to qualify for the next stage of the Champions League, and especially after pumping Leon in their own backyard, of course, as well. And it was a disappointing night, to say the least. But no one was to envisage what was to happen after that. That's for sure.
There's a whole nother podcast there, Derek. Peter Drummond mentioning Ryan Jack. Now, we don't know exactly when Ryan Jack will be back in contention, but it's an interesting little side note, because I think the return of Jack, as much as in Europe it's great to have that Jack Davis Kamara, I don't think domestically it's needed that often, and maybe away against the Celtic or Aberdeen, but not that often. But I think what the return of Ryan Jack will allow Steven Gerrard to do is to give Steven Davis a rest. It was interesting last night. I don't know if you watched the Rangers Relentless 55 movie yet, but it was watched part of it, and Davis was talking about how in lockdown he'd never had a break that long from football, and he didn't know how. He said, you don't know how your body's going to react, and he mentioned that everyone always talks about his age because he's still playing at a high level, and the thing is he doesn't seem to let up. But equally, it would be good for him to not have to play 60 games this season, and hopefully, for me, Derek, the return of Ryan Jack allows him to play alongside Glen Kamara domestically a little bit, and just rotate Steven Davis out so he doesn't have to play every, away. And we've not got Hamilton away this season, but every away game on Astro and all these little things. So Godspeed to get Ryan Jack back, in my opinion. What's yours?
Yeah. Well, we touched on this yesterday. He's been named in the Europa League squad, so that's possibly an indication as to how close he is to getting back in the squad and near in action as well. Like everyone, I think everyone's just excited to see him back in a Rangers jersey again. But he's one of those ones where you can't really rely on him at the moment, just because he has broken down so often when he came back. Let's hope that he's over those injury problems and you can get a good run of games, because there's no point maybe playing 2 or 3 games and then being out for the next 4 or 5. So as you see, Hughes just getting in touch, says he won't rush Ryan Jack back, and hopefully he won't, and just ease him into it. I mean, I think they've got plenty of options in midfield anyway just now. Rangers, of course, is Bakuna as well, who we've yet to see. But if they can get Ryan Jack back match fit before I would say, if they can get him maybe before the end of the month, something like that, ease him in, maybe some substitute appearances, then it's like the old cliche, it'll be like a new signing, but it'll be another a great addition to that Rangers engine room. And like you say about Davis, I think with Davis he's just a freak of nature, isn't he? I think he absolutely loves playing. I mean, he's still running the show for Northern Ireland as well, and he just loves the game. And I don't think he would be a player who would say, "I just leave me out this week, Gaffer." I think he would be one of the first ones to put his hand up saying, "I'm ready. I want to play. I want to play every game." So it's an interesting one. But yeah, like you, it would be nice just to maybe play the likes of Jack and Kamara in that midfield to give Davis a rest or two, because there is a whole influx of games coming up. Of course, it's a tight schedule with Europa League and domestic action all the way up until pretty much just before Christmas time. So he's going to have to utilise the whole squad. Yeah,
and there's going to be lots of tricky games because you've got the Edinburgh teams away from home, and I think the run over the next a couple of months actually is reasonably favourable for Rangers. But having that depth of squad will be so important when you're going away to Tynecastles and Easter Roads and Pittodries and the like. Right, Glen Kamara, speaking on international duty, as players always seem to do, speaking about his contract, saying discussions are basically still ongoing, can't say much more, let's see what happens. He added, "I know there has been interest from different leagues, but my focus has always been here on Rangers. Mostly I thought that if something happens, then it will happen, but it didn't happen." That to me sounds like the reality of the situation, which is, Derek, Glen Kamara hopefully will sign a new contract and seems very happy at Rangers. But as the club have said regularly, if a bid comes in with the right number, they won't turn it down, because that's the aim. But equally, fingers crossed that he signs a new deal, isn't it? I mean, but his comments, that's what players are going to say, isn't it? And especially when there's interest from down south, it's only natural, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was, like many, amazed that Glen Kamara was still a Rangers player come the 1st of September. I was amazed that no team came in for him really with a realistic offer, but it may just be the way the market is at the moment. But yeah, the fact that no one has come in is obviously to Rangers' advantage, and it's great to have him. If he signs that new deal, then when he does move on, the Rangers will be entitled to a lot more money, of course. But yeah, it's just great to see him still in a Rangers jersey. For me, he and Davis are the two best midfielders in the country by a country mile. So it's great to still have him at the club. And of course, he was playing for Finland. I think he was playing last night against France, I'm sure. Yeah. So he's another one strutting his stuff in the global stage. So yeah, he's a fantastic player. Like you say, the words you expect to hear from a player. Let's hope it gets resolved soon. Very much like the Goldson situation. I can see Billy's got in touch. He says he's surprised it hasn't been resolved yet. So my Billy, to be honest with you, that's another one that is rumbling on. And yeah, the more it rumbles on, you seem to think that he's maybe going to leave at the end of the campaign, because nothing seems to be moving one way or another with that one, does it?
Well, do you not think as well, though? Like, I mean, I was thinking, I did a piece on squad depth the other day, and you're looking at these next season, and there's quite a few players whose contracts currently are up in 2023, and obviously Goldson's is up next summer. But Rangers, if they win the league, have almost guaranteed Champions League football, as long as I think it's the winner of the Champions League qualify through their domestic league. So, for example, as Chelsea last season won and qualified for the Champions League already because of their finish in the Premier League. Does Connor Goldson really leave Rangers for a 13th, 14th place Premiership team when he could play Premiership football? Champions League football, and then commit? He's still 28. He's got another number of years at the top level, or he can be the kind of remain the cornerstone of this Rangers team for a number of years. I don't know, and that applies to players like Morelos as well. You've seen from that Malmo game, even in the Champions League qualifiers, he fancies that. And is Morelos going to want to leave? Will the Champions League be a pull for players who, we thought that would maybe be the case this season if we'd done better in our qualifiers? But it's certainly an interesting kind of proposition. I think the reason I'm not as surprised it's been resolved is because the Champions League money and Goldson's too important to this side to lose at the moment. It's if you take Connor Goldson to that side, for me, he's played roughly 95% of the matches Steven Gerrard's managed. Yeah. And the team hasn't had a period of success without him. You think we've had success without Davis in there, success without Tavernier, success without Morelos, without Kent. There's been demonstration this side can play as we know they can without a number of key players because of the cohesive collective unit. But Goldson's so important in the way he's able to defend high up the pitch, his distribution, the way he's able to sometimes bring... I don't think he's excellent at bringing the ball into midfield, but he's certainly good with the ball at his feet, short and long, and he can step in a little bit. So for me, he's just too important for there to be... The only resolution can be, if he doesn't sign, okay, well, he's too important to lose this season, so let's trust it. As a professional, he'll get on with it, and we'll be fine for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Who knows? There may be an agreement in place if Rangers do make the Champions League. Then a new contract is dependent on that as well. Like you, I wouldn't fancy moving to a middle of the table Premier League side or a Championship club when I've got Champions League football on the horizon as well. But who knows what Connor Goldson's situation will be come the summer. I agree with you. I think the bounty at the end of this season, if they win the league, far outweighs selling Connor Goldson. Of course, no real bid came in for him either, so it's all right saying that. But until a realistic offer comes in from a football club, then it's not really a discussion you can have. But yeah, it's one that has rumbled on, but. His last couple of performances have been really impressive for me. I had a worry that perhaps it would affect him mentally, and at the beginning of the season, I think it looked like that. But he certainly has come onto a game. That Celtic game, he was outstanding, albeit the little slip at the end of the first half that Hollander did well to cover. But apart from that, he was superb. So yeah, I think he's too integral to this Rangers team. This season, I think he's massive, not just on the field, but I think off it as well. I think he's such a big influence. So yeah, I think it's important to keep him, whether that contract situation is resolved or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, finally, Derek, this morning we'll speak about Cedric Itten, who, of course, is now out on loan in Germany. And again, speaking over the international break, said that he wished he could have played more, but there was a big squad that was largely together for 3 years without notable departures, explaining why he wasn't able to make more of a stake. It wasn't easy to play yourself into the side. I benefited from being in a new country and from a different type of football. Steven Gerrard is definitely a big personality, very well equipped tactically, and I was able to learn a lot. For me, I don't know if Cedric Itten will be a long-term part of Rangers' future, or whether this loan move is with a view to putting him in the shop window again. But I think he's largely right. Like Itten only started 4 games as a central striker last season, and I think a couple of those were in rotated squads. So, it's hard to judge a player on that. And there's quite a few times where Defoe was selected ahead of him, even in cup games. I'm thinking of the Cove Rangers game, for example, the win at Ibrox, where it did seem strange that perhaps there wasn't a more of a kind of a view to give it in some game time. But it's hard to argue with his comments, Derek, in my opinion, that he's not had that much game time. But then equally, it's kind of sink or swim, isn't it? You know, if Kemar Roof started really strongly and hit the ground running, and that's why he was able to make a stake for his place in the team. And look at players like Scott Wright as well, who's trying to break into the really competitive area of the team. I just think it's so hard to become a regular Rangers player in that area. And maybe Itten isn't quite there just yet, and a loan move will help him.
Yeah, I rate Cedric Itten. I think he's a good player. I just think with Rangers' style of play, it's like a square peg in a round hole. It just hasn't quite worked for him, and it's been like he says, it's been really competitive to get in that Rangers side. It's no shame not to make a name for yourself in that Rangers team. There's so much quality in there. It's a good move for him as well. The Bundesliga in Germany, of course, one of the best leagues in the world. So it'll be interesting to see if he scores a few goals over there. I mean, I know there is the January recall, so who knows what the situation will be for Rangers come January. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. I wish him all the best. Like I say, I think he's a decent player. He had some good performances. Motherwell springs to mind, and like Poznan when he scored that goal as well. He was really good. And even at the start of pre-season, he looked impressive. Steven Gerrard's comments as well looked like he would maybe turned a corner, and he was really starting to integrate himself into the side and feeling comfortable as a Rangers player. But it just hasn't quite happened for him. I mean, the management team watch him day in, day out in training. They feel that he's not quite at the level to trust him to lead the line. And of course, like I say, no shame, Alfredo Morelos is the main man, Kemar Roof and is a step above as well. So it's always going to be a struggle to get into that Rangers team. But yeah, like I say, I wish him all the best. It does seem a bit final. I think he will be moved out the door. But don't be surprised to see him pulling up trees at other clubs, because I think he would do a job for a team that would suit his style of play more. Okay, right. Well, we'll leave it there for this morning, Derek. Remember, folks, you can subscribe to the Rangers Review for just $2.99 a month. Today we have a great tactical analysis piece from one of our contributors on Helander, looking at his role as a defender, why he's so good, as we all know, as Derek always bangs on about. You can read that over on the site. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll start to build up to the return of domestic football, looking ahead to Rangers' trip to St Johnstone on Saturday. So we'll speak to you tomorrow morning, and until then,